Okay, remember they have gone through the water into the cave, and Ruach held out the key for each one of the warriors. Levi did not take his key. And as we were leaving before, Xavier had taken the key and unlocked the door, and he found that his room was empty. I can't help but wonder what that means. Because he was saying that he was feeling inadequate and insecure. And then he opened the door, and the door was empty. The room was empty. So, oh goodness. What do you think that means? Oh well. The Prince Warriors, Volume 3, Chapter 16, The Gift. Xavier thought he must be mistaken. He took a few steps inside the long, narrow room, looking around in speechless disbelief. How could this be? 4 bare walls, nothing on the floor, nothing hanging from the low ceiling. Empty. Hey! Xavier heard Evan's indignant cry and went over to see what was in his room. He hoped that Evan would have gotten something, maybe even enough that he'd be willing to share some of it with his older brother. But as soon as Xavier looked inside, his face and his heart fell. Evan's room was exactly the same. "There's nothing here," Evan blurted. "Mine's empty too," said Brianna. "Mine too," said Ivy, disappointed. "Perhaps there's a secret compartment." Manuel began knocking on the walls and floor of his empty room, checking for a trap door or hidden alcove. "I don't get it," said Ivy. "Why was Ponyrose so interested in the key if the rooms are empty?" "That's a good question, Princess Ivy," said Ruach. "This stinks," moaned Evan. Brianna shook her head. "This just does not make sense. All this time we've been wanting to open these rooms for no reason at all." "There's always a reason for everything," Ruach responded. He raised one of his draped arms. A bright light shone from the far end of the long tunnel, and suddenly the book was speeding toward them. It stopped in front of Ruach, hovering on its glowing pedestal. Ruach raised his arms and waved them over. The book, like a conductor of an orchestra. The book produced a series of musical notes as the pages flipped open. Ornate letters lifted from the page and hovered in the air. EBTRLAE, ENMYE, DSREOUV, NDAHET, SPOWRL. I think I figured it out, but of course I'm able to see it. Ruach made another gesture, and the letters rearranged to form words. I'm going to read the letters again, and y'all write them down and see if you can unscramble the words, okay? EB, TRLAE, ENMYE, DSREOUV, NDAHET, SPEWRL. Okay? Da 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 da. Did you get it? Okay, don't cheat. The letters rearranged to form words. Be alert. The enemy prowls and devours. Prowls? Asked Evan with a small shiver. Devours? Asked Brianna. Like a wolf, murmured Levi. Or like the ants, said Manuel. If the pod's open, the ants inside will devour the whole town. There's no way we can protect everyone just by ourselves, even with our swords. You have everything you need, Ruach said, as serenely as ever. Always remember that. Go now. Back to the Centrum. Wait for me there. The Centrum? Asked Evan. What's that? The main room of the cave, said Ruach, where we began. The Sparks will show you the way. You aren't coming? Asked Brianna, frowning a little. I'll be there in a little. The kids started slowly down the tunnel, back the way they had come. As Levi followed, Ruach put an arm out, blocking his path. Stay, Ruach said. Levi stood waiting. Ruach did not move until the others had completely disappeared around a bend in the tunnel. Then he turned to Levi. You did not open your room. Levi shrugged. You said we had everything we needed. Ruach's hood nodded. Then he held out his glowing hand with the key. Take it. Open your door. But I thought... Open it. Levi sighed and took the key from Ruach's hand. And when he did, Ruach's hand lay empty. There was no new key to replace it. Ruach withdrew his hand into his sleeve. Levi held the key a long time before going to his door. He had seen the others' rooms. They had been completely and utterly empty. He wondered if his room could possibly have something in it that the others didn't. Finally, he put the key in the lock and turned it. Click. The door creaked when he pushed it open. A blinding flash met his eyes, but unlike the others, he could see it. His eyes slammed shut. Slowly, he blinked back into focus, wiping away the tears that formed in response to the light. When he was finally able to open his eyes fully, he looked around the room and sighed. It was empty, except for one thing. A red object hovered in the center of the room, rotating slowly. It looked like a large gemstone, about the size of a softball. At first, Levi thought it was hanging from the ceiling, but then he realized there was no string attached to it. That wasn't in the other rooms, Levi said in a hushed tone. It was, only they couldn't see it, said Ruach. So why can I see it? Go in. Levi didn't hesitate. At Ruach's command, he took a few steps inside, looking around at the blank walls. Suddenly, the door closed behind him, making it completely dark in the room. He held his breath, unsure of what would happen next. The darkness around him felt very close, as if he could touch it. He had an urge to turn and run to the door and throw it open, to let in the light, to get out, but he quelled the urge, breathing through his fear. His hand went to the hilt of the sword in his belt, the feel of it reassuring. And then out of the dark, the red gem began to glow, the light inside it pulsing like a heartbeat. Levi thought he could even hear it, feel it beating inside his own chest. The light soon became very bright, a steady beam shining in his eyes. But the beam didn't blind him, as the earlier flash had done. It made his eyes open even wider than before, melting away the darkness. The light began to take on more colors, shapes, like the flickering images of an old movie. Soon he could make out familiar things. The gigantic beech tree at the rec center with its wide canopy. Brianna huddled against the trunk of the tree, crying. He could see himself holding the helmet out to her, trying to make her put it on. This had happened not too long ago, yet now it was like he was standing on the outside looking in. And then he saw something else. Something he had not seen that day when he and Brianna were underneath the tree. Bright white light all around the two of them, like a halo. Before he could figure out where that light had come from, the vision faded. It was replaced by a much darker scene, the black steel girders of the Fortress of Chaos. He saw himself and his friends creeping through the fortress, trying to find their way in the maze of girders, while dozens of red eyes watched them, forgers all around them. Levi remembered how terrifying that was. But there was that strange white light again surrounding him and his friends. He hadn't seen it then, but he could see it now. The vision then changed to the chasm, when he and the other prince warriors had stepped out onto what looked like nothing at all, and stone steps had appeared under their feet. He saw them stepping stone to stone, but the stones were not just hovering in midair. Each stone had that same circle of light around it, as if this is what held it aloft. Levi's eyes snapped shut, wearied from the vision, from the brightness of the light. His eyes started to water. He rubbed them in hopes they would recover from the strain of these visions. But the next time he opened them, he saw himself, all alone, held in the grasp of the huge metal forger, while slowly sinking into the ground. He saw himself crying out for help, but no help came. He remembered how alone and powerless he felt, sinking slowly, turning to metal. He wanted more than anything to forget that it had ever happened. He wanted to turn away, to avoid being reminded of that day, the choice he had made to take the wide road, the path to destruction. Before he could turn away, however, he was captivated once more by light. There it was again. This time, it was a beam of light that rose from his mouth as he yelled to the top of the dome and beyond it, as if it were carrying his cries. He hadn't seen the light that day either, but he was seeing it now. The beam of red suddenly retreated from Levi's eyes. He was unclear of what was really happening. He felt confused and unsure. Darkness fell around him again, replaced by the image of Ruach fading into view. It took Levi a moment to realize that Ruach was actually standing before him now, even though the door had remained closed. This is a gift given only to you, Prince Levi. Do not speak of it to the other children just yet. Gift? Because you believed even though you did not see. You will now have the ability to see things that the others did not believe.